In the quiet hum of a routine flight from Denver to Chicago, she sat alone in row 9, just another face among the crowd. No one paid her any special attention. Why would they? With her simple clothes, soft demeanor, and tired eyes, Emma Price looked like someone trying to disappear. And for 6 long years, that's exactly what she'd been doing. But fate doesn't forget. When the captain received a mysterious code, a single word whispered through secure channels, everything changed. Oracle. That word shattered the silence, twisted routine into crisis, and turned an ordinary passenger into the plane's last line of defense. What happened next would leave every passenger stunned. Because row 9 wasn't just a seat. It was the front line. And Emma Price was no ordinary woman. The plane soared smoothly above the clouds, bathed in golden dusk. Passengers shuffled in their seats, settling in for what they believed would be an uneventful flight from Denver to Chicago. Children giggled over cartoons, businessmen scrolled through emails, and the flight attendants made their usual rounds with practiced smiles. In row 9 by the window sat a woman who seemed content to disappear into the noise, Emma Price. She wore a plain gray sweater, jeans, and no makeup. Her posture was relaxed, almost forgettable. Her gaze was distant, fixed on the wing outside, where light fractured across the engine in shimmering rays. But Emma's calm masked a deep, deliberate silence. She had no luggage in the overhead bins, no companion beside her. Only a small carry-on tucked carefully beneath her seat, zipped with surgical precision. The stewardess had offered her a drink. She declined with a smile. Then she opened a worn paperback, dog-eared and sun-faded. Yet anyone watching closely might have noticed, she hadn't turned a page in over 15 minutes. What no one knew, not the passengers, not the cheerful crew, was that Emma Price wasn't here by accident. She was watching, listening, measuring the silence between the seconds. And somewhere in the cockpit, a light blinked on. A coded message had arrived, silent and encrypted. The captain leaned forward, brow furrowing as he read the manifest again. Row 9. Emma Price. Beside her name, a symbol. Sure. Simple. Deadly. Oracle. And just like that, the illusion of routine began to dissolve. Captain Mitchell had flown this route 100 times. He knew every cloud pattern between the Rockies and the Great Lakes, every air current, every expected turbulence bump. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until now. The encrypted message had slipped into their secure line like a ghost in the wires, silent, elegant, and immediate. Only one word. Oracle. His co-pilot Reyes looked up, confused. Code word confirmation? Mitchell nodded, quietly pulling the printed passenger manifest closer. Row 9. Emma Price. Reyes blinked. The Oracle protocol. I thought that was decommissioned. Mitchell didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened the small, sealed red envelope hidden beneath the navigation panel, something most pilots would retire their whole career without ever touching. Inside, one sentence, one instruction. If Oracle is on board, do not engage. Follow her lead. No rank. No explanation. Just trust. Meanwhile, the cabin was still filled with the soft murmur of in-flight calm. A baby fussed in the back row. A businessman asked for another scotch. Somewhere, a phone vibrated in airplane mode by accident. All ordinary sounds of a world unaware. But in the cockpit, hearts beat faster. What are we flying into? Reyes asked under his breath. Mitchell's voice was low, almost reverent. We're not flying into anything. Something's already on this plane. And in row 9, Emma slowly closed her book. Her eyes, once soft and clouded, now held a dangerous clarity, sharp as glass and twice as cold. She had felt it too. A shift in the air. A pattern breaking. Something was wrong. And whatever it was, it had just begun. It started with a cough. Subtle. Dry. Ordinary. The man in seat 17C, middle-aged, clean-cut, forgettable, leaned forward slightly, coughing into his sleeve. A flight attendant glanced over politely, ready to offer water. But then he coughed again. This time deeper. Sure. A wet rattle behind it. Passengers nearby turned. The man looked up, eyes suddenly wide. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Sir? The attendant asked, her voice still professional but now taut with alarm. He didn't answer. Instead he stood. Unsteady. His hands trembled. And then he collapsed into the aisle. Gasps filled the cabin. Someone screamed. Is there a doctor on board? The attendant shouted, already dropping to her knees beside the man, trying to keep him stable. Emma didn't move. Not yet. But her eyes were locked on the scene, calculating. Observing. Watching the man's lips move, trying to speak, failing. Something about the way he clutched his jacket as if hiding something under the lining. She unfastened her seatbelt with a barely audible click. In the cockpit, Captain Mitchell heard the alert tone and checked the cabin camera feed. "Oh no," Reyes muttered. Mitchell's hands tightened on the yoke. "This isn't a medical emergency. Look at his hands." Back in the aisle, the man's body jerked once, unnaturally, and then went still. But that wasn't the end. From his coat, something fell. A small, flat case, sleek and matte black. No markings. Emma was already moving. Calm, precise, without panic. While others recoiled in confusion, she stepped forward like she had rehearsed this 1,000 times. She knelt beside the case, ignoring the fearful murmurs around her. As she opened it, her breath caught. Inside, a sealed vial. A timer. 3 minutes and 46 seconds. And counting down. The blood hadn't been the problem. It was the distraction. The real threat was now ticking. Inside a pressurized cabin 35,000 feet in the sky. And Emma Price, codename Oracle, was the only one who knew what came next. The moment Emma saw the timer, her training snapped into place like muscle memory. 3 minutes. 43 seconds. A biohazard seal. A dual vial chamber. No manufacturer code. This wasn't a random act. It was engineered. Quiet. Invisible. Lethal. She turned to the flight attendant still frozen beside the man's body. "Get the captain. Tell him Oracle requests code Gray protocol. Now." The attendant blinked. What? Emma looked her dead in the eye. "You have 30 seconds before I open this device manually. If you're wrong to hesitate, every soul on this plane dies coughing blood." That was enough. The attendant sprinted. All around her, fear pulsed like a heartbeat. Passengers whispered. Others tried to record on their phones. Some were crying. A mother clutched her child, shielding him with her coat. A man whispered prayers in Spanish. And Emma knelt, alone with the device. In the cockpit, Captain Mitchell's face drained of color the moment the words Code Gray reached his ears. He knew exactly what that meant. So did Reyes. "Bioagent," Reyes said hoarsely. "They said she was retired." Mitchell didn't answer. His fingers were already flying across the panel, isolating cabin airflow, locking the cockpit, triggering the black box recorder. "Should we reroute?" "No. We follow protocol. She's on board. That's our best chance." Back in the cabin, Emma tapped her earpiece, something no one had noticed under her curls. "Control, this is Oracle. Confirm I have visual on VX variant container. Estimated detonation in T-258. Request authentication to disarm." Static. Then a voice. Cold. Familiar. "Oracle. Are you sure you're ready to come back?" Emma's eyes didn't blink. "I never left. You just stopped asking." The response came with encrypted code. Her pupils scanned it. Mesh. Verified. She exhaled. And began. Wire by wire. Sequence by sequence. Her hands moved like they were dancing with ghosts from her past. Steady, sure, painfully familiar. Behind her, no one dared interrupt. Even the child had gone silent, sensing something far greater than fear unfolding before them. And with every passing second, the cabin held its breath. Because in the hands of the woman from row 9 was the fate of 243 passengers. And perhaps the world. The silence in the cabin was unbearable. Time felt suspended, like the plane itself hung not in the sky but in a fragile moment between life and death. And in the middle of it all was Emma, calm, exact, methodical. She didn't look like a spy. Not like the ones in movies. She was wearing soft sneakers, a gray hoodie, hair tied up in a loose bun. A toddler had spilled juice on her jeans earlier. No one would have guessed she once led covert neutralizations across continents, or that her code name, Oracle, had been whispered in fear in backrooms from Geneva to Jakarta. And yet, now, every trembling hand, every tear-streaked face on that plane rested their hope in her. As she disarmed the 5th internal trigger, a sharp click echoed from the device. Not the one she expected. Her eyes narrowed. A secondary core. Someone had built this with deliberate redundancy, someone who knew her methods. Her hands froze midair. It wasn't just a bomb. It was a message. And it was personal. Emma leaned back slightly, scanning the crowd. That was when she saw it. A man in seat 27D, middle-aged, ordinary, but his watch was military grade. His breathing? Too controlled. He was watching her. Not with panic. With calculation. She turned to face him slowly. Their eyes locked. His lips moved. Tick-tock. And in that instant she knew. This wasn't just about killing civilians. This was a test. A reawakening. He wanted her to return. Emma swallowed hard. The passengers still saw only a brave stranger. But behind her calm was a mind running through 1,000 permutations of possible outcomes. If she disarmed this last core wrong, if she touched the pressure seal the wrong way, everyone dies. The flight attendants hovered near the curtain separating the galley from the cabin. One whispered into the intercom, "She's doing something. I think she might actually stop it." In the cockpit, Mitchell listened silently. "Sir," Reyes asked, "do we inform ground control?" "No," Mitchell said quietly. "Not yet." He glanced at the glowing map. "She deserves the next 2 minutes without the world watching her bleed." Back in row 9, Emma's hands hovered over the final mechanism. Her voice, low and steady, filled the earpiece. "Control, I have eyes on failsafe 7C. Detonation sequence manually synced to pulse response. If I open this valve without direct override..." The voice cut in. "Emma, do not proceed." But Emma didn't flinch. "I don't need clearance. I need trust." And with that, she did something no one expected. She reached into her sock, pulled out an old coin. Silver. Scratch. The same coin given to her by her mentor before his death. A rare conductor. She pressed it against the chamber. A soft hum. The sensor reacted. Green light. Seal deactivated. Timer stopped. A whisper of relief rippled through the cabin. The kind only people who had brushed against death could understand. But Emma didn't smile. She was already standing. Already walking. Towards seat 27D. And the man who thought she'd forgotten who she was. Emma stopped beside seat 27D. No one spoke. The passengers around her held their breath, not just out of fear but because they sensed something else, something unnamed, a storm waiting to erupt in utter silence. The man looked up, a faint smile curling at his lips as if they were just two strangers bumping into each other mid-flight. "Long time, Oracle," he murmured, only loud enough for her to hear. Emma didn't flinch. But her gaze was now colder than steel. "How many did you sacrifice just to lure me out?" she asked, her voice soft as silk being slit. 100 lives? A plane full of women and children?" He tilted his head. "Not for them. For you. You've been asleep in your little human dream. I was just knocking. And you thought I'd come back?" Her tone was sharper now, laced with fury. "Just because you want to replay your deadly little game?" The man chuckled quietly, but there was a flicker of menace in his eyes. "No. Because the world won't wait for you. It will collapse, whether you rise or not." Emma pulled a small blade from her sleeve, not to threaten but to end it. But she didn't stab him. Instead, she leaned in close, her lips near his ear. "There will always be monsters like you. But I'm no longer the woman you could ever control." She placed the blade in his hand, the tip aimed at his own chest. "Choose your ending." He looked at her, for the first time not as an opponent, but as a man who had just lost something he could never possess. Emma stood, silent. A minute later, the man vanished from his seat. No one saw where he went. Emma never looked back. Up in the cockpit, Mitchell received the report. Device fully disabled. Passengers stable. No casualties. He sat motionless for a moment. Then he let out a long breath, like a man finally putting down a burden far too heavy. "Who is she?" Reyes asked quietly. Mitchell replied with just one sentence. "The person I owe my life to." Back in the cabin, children began to laugh again. Adults, still dazed, broke into applause, soft at first, then thunderous like emotion pouring out after being bottled too long. Emma simply bowed her head slightly, then returned quietly to her seat in row 9. She didn't need recognition. She just needed to know. Today she made the right choice. And no matter how much darkness tried to swallow her, she would always be the one to light the final spark. One more time. And perhaps, not the last. The plane touched down gently, as if the heavens themselves had decided to grant a moment of peace. The passengers erupted in quiet tears, soft prayers, and spontaneous embraces, no one quite able to explain what had happened, only that they had been saved by something, or someone. Emma stepped off last. The night air was cool against her skin, but inside she burned, with memory, with unfinished business, and with the ache of being something the world didn't have a name for. Standing at the edge of the runway, she looked up. The stars had returned, clear, distant, unblinking. It reminded her of the promise she once made to a dying friend. "If I ever come back, it won't be to run. It'll be to end it." Behind her, Agent Mitchell approached slowly, keeping his voice low. "We've contained the device." The man vanished without a trace. Emma nodded. He won't go far. Not this time. Mitchell hesitated. The bureau wants to debrief you. I know, she said. But first, I need to disappear again. Not for me. For the girl in seat 6A. For the boy who said thank you without knowing why. He offered a faint smile. You're still that girl from the Sandglass Project, aren't you? Emma turned to him fully now, the wind catching strands of her hair. No, she said with a quiet certainty. I'm what's left of her reforged. Then she handed him the small encrypted crystal she had retrieved from under the trader's seat, its glowing core dimmed but not dead. This will tell you who's really pulling the strings. Mitchell stared at it, stunned. You were never just a passenger, were you? Emma looked over her shoulder one last time, where the plane stood gleaming under floodlights like a resting beast. None of us are, she whispered. Some of us just know when it's time to stop pretending. And with that, she stepped into the shadows of the waiting night. No name. No farewell. Only a silence more powerful than any applause. Because true heroes don't wait for cameras. They walk into the dark so others never have to. Sometimes the most extraordinary souls don't wear uniforms, medals, or carry titles the world understands. They slip through our lives quietly, like whispers in a storm, changing the course of fate without needing recognition, applause, or even gratitude. Emma didn't save that flight for glory. She didn't stop a catastrophe to be remembered. She did it because, in the silence between breaths, she still believed in something purer than revenge. Responsibility. Redemption. Humanity. And though she vanished without a trace, every passenger who stepped off that plane walked into a new life, one unknowingly shaped by her sacrifice. So next time you find yourself staring out the window of a plane, wondering who the stranger next to you really is, remember this. The quietest person in the room may carry the loudest truth, and the passenger with the softest eyes might just be the one keeping you alive. Because sometimes the person we overlook is the one who already saw everything coming. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it. Not for Emma, but for everyone who walks silently so the rest of us may arrive safely. This is such an amazing story. Dear friends, if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There is still a lot of interesting things to come.